NVIDIA's new RTX GPUs are being heralded as a graphics revolution, with the advent of real-time ray tracing and more thanks to the new Turing architecture. I'm Captain Arya, and today we're going to take a look at what comes inside the box with the brand new NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080Ti Founders Edition and what you can expect as a gamer. On the outside, the RTX 2080Ti Founders Edition box is a familiar shape and size for those who've been around the Founders Edition of the previous generation. But the big shift is in terms of the image design on the front from the Pascal generation, and of course the big GeForce RTX emphasizing the new line of GPUs. The cover lifts up the top the same as before, revealing a much cleaner and more minimalist interior that contains the GPU in just one smaller box that contains all the documentation and setup guides for the card, along with a DisplayPort to DVI converter, since the new GPU no longer supports analog outputs. The GPU itself comes covered in an anti-static wrapping, unlike the packets from the previous generation. The first thing of course you notice is the major design shift from the old blower style single fan card to a much sleeker and sexier dual fan GPU. The two 13-blade fans combine with a single vapor chamber that runs the entire length of the PCB for greater coverage, and it has exposed heat fins along the side of the GPU, unlike the closed design of all the previous generation Founders Edition cards. In terms of visual design, the new RTX Founders Edition looks absolutely gorgeous. We've got a shift from the more aggressive angles on the Pascal 10 series cards to a cleaner, more chic RTX card. We've got the lovely black segment in the middle with the RTX 2080Ti on it, and then a full metal body wrapping around the entire GPU, including the backplate as well. While the GPU maintains its SLI port and capabilities, NVIDIA has introduced a brand new standard called NVLink. This enables much higher transfer speeds that in SLI will make 8K 60Hz outputs possible. In terms of power, you're looking at two 8-pin connectors, with the new RTX cards being a bit more power hungry thanks to the new RT cores and Tensor cores present for real-time ray tracing and the AI-powered performance boosts. The RTX cards mark another big shift for the NVIDIA GPUs, with analog outputs like DVI being retired, quite literally, at least on the card, with 3 DP 1.4 ports, 1 HDMI 2.0 port. It is also the first GPU to ship with a USB Type-C or virtual link port meant for next generation virtual reality headsets to replace the need for multiple cables. The RTX 2080Ti Founders Edition comes in at a whopping INR 1,05,000, and compared to the GTX 1080 Ti, which was around 70,000 when it was introduced via the NVIDIA store last year. In terms of specs, the RTX 2080 Ti has a massive 4352 CUDA cores and 11 GB of GDDR6 memory, while the GTX 1080 Ti has only 3584 CUDA cores with 11 GB of the slower GDDR5X memory in comparison. In addition, the new Turing-based GPU also features new RT cores that enable the real-time ray tracing in games via this dedicated hardware, and a new set of Tensor cores that perform AI processes like the new DLSS or Deep Learning Super Sampling for a massive boost in performance for games that feature the tech. In terms of power, the RTX GPUs aren't exactly a step towards efficiency, as they consume more power thanks to the new cores performing extra tasks. However, it's not as much of a jump, as the TDP for the RTX 2080 Ti is only 260 watts compared to 250 on the 1080 Ti. Now let's move on to the meaty part of this video with the review. I picked the new RTX 2080 Ti against its counterpart, the GTX 1080 Ti Founders Edition, and of course the recently launched Zotac Gaming RTX 2080 amp that I reviewed a while ago. A special thanks to LG for helping out with the amazing LG 32UD99 4K HDR gaming monitor that helped me benchmark on 4K. There's no surprise that the RTX 2080 Ti comes out ahead in all games, but the performance jump does vary from game to game, as you would expect. First up, I ran the cards through the Infiltrator tech demo that runs on both TAA anti-aliasing and DLSS, which is unique to the new RTX cards. On TIA 4K, the GTX 1080 Ti output an average 40 FPS with a peak of 60, which was beaten comfortably by the RTX 2080 AMP, which was at 52 FPS on average and a peak of 70. These in turn were outperformed by the RTX 2080 Ti with an average 60 FPS and a peak of 80. Now remember, this is just raw power. The real fun came in on DLSS enabled mode, where the RTX 2080 gave a massive jump over the GTX 1080 Ti with an average 64 FPS, but the RTX 2080 Ti was the one who had the last laugh as it crushed it with an average 75 FPS and a peak of 105, just short of twice as much as that of the GTX 1080 Ti without DLSS. This tech looks super promising, and I look forward to seeing games like PUBG really benefiting from it. Now on to the standard review part with games running on 4K, starting with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The GTX 1080 Ti came in with an average 39 FPS and a peak of 59. The RTX 2080 AMP edition gave an average 46 FPS and a peak of 70. The top performer, as expected, was the RTX 2080 Ti with an impressive average FPS of 58, which is nearly 50% more than the GTX 1080 Ti, and this is even before DLSS comes in with an update for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Next up is the classic Witcher 3 on 4K Ultra. The GTX 1080 Ti gave a respectable 45 FPS and a peak of 52 compared to the RTX 2080 AMP with a peak of 60 and average of 52. The RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition once again came in with an impressive 62 FPS on average and a peak of 79. On Assetto Corsa Competizione, the trend continued with the RTX 2080 Ti coming out on top with an average FPS of 68 compared to the RTX 2080 AMP with 60 and the GTX 1080 Ti at 54, marking another about 30% jump for the RTX 2080 Ti. Assetto Corsa Competizione is another game which is going to feature RTX features with real-time ray tracing expected sometime this month. PUBG on 4K put all three cards to the test, but the results were nothing surprising. The GTX 1080 Ti came in with an average FPS of 55, the RTX 2080 AMP edition at 67 FPS, and the RTX 2080 Ti blowing them away with an average of 78 FPS and a peak of 100 on 4K Ultra. PUBG is another high-profile game that is set to introduce DLSS in the coming weeks, and Lord knows we need that extra FPS. In Sniper Elite 4, the GTX 1080 Ti put up an impressive average 70 FPS but came up short again against the RTX card with the 2080 AMP at 91 FPS average and the RTX 2080 Ti at 104 FPS on average. I managed to test the GTX 1080 Ti and the RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition on Final Fantasy 15 with the RTX 2080 Ti coming out ahead. The GTX 1080 Ti gave an average 41 FPS on 4K Ultra with all GameWorks on, while the RTX 2080 Ti jumped by almost 30% to an average 56 FPS. In terms of heat, the GTX 1080 Ti Founders Edition was the hottest, almost at 80 degrees throughout on all games. The RTX 2080 AMP was at a cool 60 degrees or so throughout thanks to its triple fan cooling. The RTX 2080 Ti on the other hand gave some interesting results in this department, while it was touching 80 degrees when on the default fan speed for its quiet mode, but once I cranked it up manually to about 80% fan speed, it got a little bit noisier but was still quieter than the GTX 1080 Ti and came down to about 68 degrees Celsius approximately. While there is no doubt that the RTX 2080 Ti is the best GPU money can buy right now, not everyone has the budget for it. The substantial jump in performance coupled with the new design of the Founders Edition really makes a compelling case for the RTX 2080 Ti FE. However, not everyone's got 1 lakh sitting around just for the GPU, which is why the RTX 2080 is of much better value since it anyways outperforms the previous generation flagship. When considering your next GPU, it's important to consider the value of the new tech with the RTX cards, since real-time ray tracing is just getting introduced and a lot of games are going to feature DLSS in the coming future for that huge performance boost, which just isn't possible on the previous gen cards. The bottom line is, if you're looking for a new card in 2018 for 4K and have the cash to splash, I would recommend the RTX 2080 Ti in a heartbeat. However, do check out the partner variants with the likes of Zotac, because with the extra performance you're going to want the best cooling possible. If budget is a constraint, I would recommend stretching all the way to an RTX 2080 because it's already better than the GTX 1080 Ti and will help you remain future proof for a while. Well, that's it for this super long and hopefully not too boring review of the RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition. I've put in a lot of time and effort into laying out the facts and getting you these benchmarks to help you guys make an educated decision, unlike most knee-jerk reactions you're going to find on social media. I hope you enjoyed it, and I just want to thank you for continuing to support my channel. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for somewhat regular live streams and videos. Captain Arya, over and out.